Today is cutdown day for the NFL. Rosters have to drop to 53 by, I believe it's 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. And it's a little bit of a misnomer. It always gets referred to as the final 53. Oh, here's the projection for the final 53. The reality is no team is going to roll into the first week with the 53-man roster that they have today. Most teams are not going to have the same 53-man roster tomorrow that they have today. A lot of times it's logistical tricks. For instance, one of the questions facing the Cowboys today is, do we put Josh Ball on the 53-man roster? Because he has to be on the roster for a day before you could put him on IR with the hip injury. So do they leave him on the roster for a day, have a handshake deal with a vested veteran who doesn't have to go through waivers and say, hey, we're going to cut you, but it's just a trick that we have to do, and we'll sign you back to the 53 tomorrow after we put him on IR. So you have some of those questions facing you today. Some of the veterans who could be in play that you might hear getting cut today that could turn back tomorrow. Malik Jefferson, the linebacker. Trent Sieg is another one. CJ Goodwin, the special teams ace. These are all guys that you could see get cut and return. But with that in mind, here is what I think the initial 53-man roster will look like. And like I just mentioned there, I think they have no long snapper on the first roster today. There won't be one. They'll only have a kicker and a punter. They'll sign him back tomorrow. Quarterbacks. I got 3 of them. Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, Trey Lance. We all feel pretty good about the quarterback room heading into this year.
Now, Trey Lance, they're not going to have 3 active on game day, right?
Probably not.
What's the new rule? How's that work?
It's this, so you don't, I'm trying to remember what the exact thing is. You can have him on the active roster, but you don't have to have it, or you can have him on the 53, but you don't have to have him as a game day active unless you lose your quarterback or you lose your 2 quarterbacks, and then one of them, like once they've subbed out, they cannot come back in, then you can tap in the 3rd quarterback. So that's the easy group right there. Will Grier obviously going to move on. I know there's been some chatter. Some people, you guys have probably seen it on Twitter, trying to argue for, well, like, you know what? They should cut Cooper Rush because Will Grier showed us something in this last game. But no, this will be Dak, Cooper Rush, and Trey Lance.
For this upcoming season, for the next 2 years, only 2 years, I tell you can have Will Grier or Trey Lance. Who you taking?
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance.
Okay, same.
Now, would you say the same thing about Cooper Rush or Will Grier?
Yeah, I'd rather have Cooper Rush.
Then who?
Will Grier.
I was just throwing that out there.
Cooper Rush.
Yeah, Cooper Rush is, like, I think, shown. Will Grier, it was great. He played the way he did. He was really motivated. It was nice that he had that moment. Will Grier's still got a lot of problems as a quarterback.
Now let me make it interesting. In the next 3 years, you have Trey Lance or Cooper Rush. 3.
Trey Lance.
Yeah, I'll go Trey. There's just the upside there.
And if I make it 2 years, there's less time to grow. Cooper Rush or Trey Lance?
Trey. Right now, I'd rather have Cooper as the backup, but starting next year, I think the succession plan is next year Trey Lance is the backup quarterback.
I agree.
Okay.
Running backs. I know a lot of people have argued for maybe 4 or 5. So Ronald Jones is going to start the year suspended, so he will not be on the active roster. That's one spot you save. I think they're going to cut Malik Davis. I think they're going to cut the final preseason star, Hunter Lipke, the fullback that everybody was in love with. So I think it'll be Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn. They'll probably try to put Lipke and or Malik Davis on the practice squad as some insurance. I've got them only keeping 5 receivers. And this hurt my soul because I really like Jalen Brooks out at camp. But their numbers are really tight right now, especially on defense. They're going to have to make some cuts that I don't think they necessarily want to. Offensive line cuts are going to be tight. And I feel pretty confident that they're going to keep 4 tight ends. So they've got to trim somewhere. So it'll be 5 receivers: CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin. Tight ends, got 4. I think they are going to keep 4. Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, Peyton Hendershot, who the fact that he was on ice for the last game kind of says he was on. And then Sean McEwen is a guy who he plays special teams. He lines up in the backfield. Dak trusts him. He's been here for 3 years. That one just feels like a slight edge over Hunter Lipke, who would probably be the guy that you're swapping out. This is where it gets a little nuts, are these next 2 positions. The offensive line. Got 9 right now.
Dang.
So you've got the starting lineup, obviously.
Is that normal?
To keep 9? Teams will keep between 8 and 10 usually, somewhere around there. So Tyron Smith, Tyler Biadasz, Zach Martin, Terrence Steele, obviously. Behind that, TJ Bass, the undrafted free agent from Oregon. Awesome Richards, the draft pick from North Carolina. Matt Waletzko, and then Chuma Edoga. Now, here's the problem, is that group right there does not have a natural center to back up. They will likely sign one to the practice squad, be a game day elevation. And then the other issue here is that the only reason I'm keeping Chuma Edoga is those three other guys have not really ever played at the NFL level. I don't think Willetsko took any snaps last year, but Awesome Richards is a rookie. TJ Bass is a rookie. You can't have no experience behind your guys. So Edoga kind of wins by default, even though I didn't think he was very good. I've got them cutting Matt Farniok, Brock Hoffman, and Josh Ball. But Ball very easily could be a guy that they keep on the roster today just to get to IR and then make a new signing tomorrow. The defensive line, I had to go heavy here. 11. We've got DeMarcus Lawrence, Sam Williams, Dante Fowler, Dorrance Armstrong, Junior Fehoko, the 4th round pick, Chauncey Golston, Isaiah Land, the undrafted free agent from Florida A&M, Jonathan Hankins, Mozzie Smith, Oso Odigizua, and then Neville Gallimore sneaks on. So this is Golston and Gallimore, I think, have been bubble players, but this ultimately means that Quentin Bohanna is off the roster. I got them only carrying 4 linebackers to start the year, which is really tight, especially when you consider one of them is going to be Micah Parsons, because that means you basically only have 3. So it's Leighton, Micah, Damone Clark, and Devin Harper. I think Jabril Cox's time here is done. And, you know, Nick Eatman talked about that yesterday. He seemed to think the same thing. I know Michael Gelkins talked about it. This is a light group, but you're going to run heavy at safety probably. Marquise Bell, guys like that can come up, play in the box, and they're going to use them as linebackers. I think that's how they'll justify it. And I think you could see Malik Jefferson return after cuts, after they do some of their, you know, little accounting tricks. Corners. Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, who I do not think is going to be ready for the start of the season, but he'll be ready within the first 4 weeks, so they don't want to put him on PUP. Nashawn Wright, who will probably go to IR the next day. And then Eric Scott Jr. So no Kelvin Joseph.
Did Eric?
You just don't like Kelvin Joseph. He's going to make the team. He's their best special teams player.
CJ Goodwin is their best special teams player, but I think they can get special teams. You didn't draft this guy in the second round for special teams contributions. I think that he's off. I think they want a reset there. But
plus, what is he like behind the scenes?
I mean, you need look, once they got rid of Cole Beasley, they needed a hip-hop artist.
Conspiracy theory?
No, a hip-hop artist. They needed that.
I mean, there's like 6 guys in every NFL locker room with a mixtape. He doesn't have to be the one.
But do they have a name like that? Boss Man Fat?
Dude, no. You know the vibe? No. I'm out. Now, look, he's starting to hear the chatter because he tweeted, I think it was yesterday, he's like, go ahead and write all those articles. I'm still going to do me or something like that. He's got rabbit ears. He hears all of it. And I think that's something the Cowboys don't want him to have happen. They don't want him to hear those things, and he naturally does. But ultimately, Eric Scott Jr., I've seen some people leave him off the roster. I think Brian left him off his roster. You gave up your 5th round pick in the draft this year to go move up and take him in the draft in the spring. And so I just don't see them sacrificing a 5th round pick and giving up that quick.
But again, okay, and I understand what you're saying, but like, if they're that's this year. I said this is a 2nd round pick from 2 years ago. So, like, what's more important, a 2nd round pick from 2 years ago or give up a 5th round pick this year?
The 2nd round pick from 2 years ago has already showed you who he is, I think. And Eric Scott Jr. made plays during practice. He wasn't as good in the games, but he made plays in practice, showed them some stuff, and they're fresh off of believing in him enough to spend that pick on him. They're 4 months removed from that. The shine is off of Kelvin Joseph a little bit. I mentioned the 2 special teamers already, Brandon Aubrey, the kicker, Brian Anger, the punter. And then to close out the roster, first day anyway, I got them carrying 6 safeties. J-Ron Kearse, Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, Wanye Thomas is going to make the roster, I think. I'm pretty confident in that. Marquise Bell is the guy that they want to step up and take the overshown reps and become the hybrid linebacker, and then Israel Mukuamu. So this is a really versatile safety group. We already know Kearse can play up in the box. Thomas can do it a little bit. Bell does it about the same amount as Kearse does. And then Mukuamu is a guy who I think might be better at corner at times. And so he's somebody who can play safety, play corner. They get flexibility there. So I think they're going to use their safety group, run heavy there, and use it as a way to cover some other spots. Now, what's interesting about this, we were talking about this during the break, is if this roster falls this way, you got to think about how many guys from that 2021 class, which is honestly being saved probably right now by Micah Parsons and how good he is. And Oso Odighizuwa has been a good player as a third-round pick. But when you look at it, the other picks in that draft, if this 53-man roster falls this way, Kelvin Joseph, cut. Chauncey Golston, firmly on the bubble. Nashawn Wright, firmly on the bubble. Jabril Cox, cut. Josh Ball, cut. Fehoko, cut. Bohanna and Farniak, cut. They very easily could cut 6 guys from their 21 draft class today. And it wouldn't surprise me. And that's significant.
Since I always take shots at RJ Choppy's college realignment, also baseball stats, I'll spread some of that to football. I'm pretty stunned over the amount of people. You tell me if I'm wrong, otherwise we just wasted a whole segment. The amount of people who get interested in the back end of 53-man rosters. Is there a ton of interest when y'all do Love of the Star?
Yeah, we get
all that.
We get a lot of questions. Just they're
because
really,
everyone puts them out. Like all the beat reporters put them out. So it's like mock drafts. So there must be a market for it. But I'm like, how many fans are really following or care about Matt Farniak's destiny?
Not so much Farniak, but I think they do. They want it. They are.
If it's Kelvin, if it's Jabril Cox, I get it.
They're intrigued by those names.
But Eric Scott. Jalen Brooks.
So Scott naturally ends up being the competition for Joseph, so he ends out getting some of that attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we get a lot of interest in that, and the articles always do well.